What does lesbian sex mean to the sex therapist?
It means more orgasms.
Yes, it sure does.
She said it, guys. That
Y'all
wasn't
hop
me.
on the train.
It was her. Hey, guys. I'm Denise.
I'm Lyndsey, and this is Lyndsey, and we are Born This Gay.
Hey, guys. Welcome to Born This Gay podcast. We have a very special episode for you guys today. Today, we actually have a sex expert.
Wow.
Well, a professional sex therapist, I guess, but I like to call it a sex expert.
That's a good term for it.
But yeah, today we're going to go through some questions and hopefully give you guys a little bit of pointers and tips if you're going through some issues, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, guys, I promise y'all are not the only ones who are going to learn something this episode. I'm already getting a little hot and sweaty just thinking about the subjects that we are about to discuss. So you guys stick around and we're going to have one heck of an episode out for y'all.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be good. So, Lyndsey, if you want to go ahead and just let our listeners know, introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Really glad to be here, by the way. Very excited for this. My name is Lyndsey Murray, and I am a certified sex therapist, and I own a private practice in Dallas. See mostly couples, we'll see individuals as well. And my work is really just around helping people with their relationships and improving their sex life, whatever that means for them. So
I gotta ask, how do you get into sex therapy? Why sex therapy?
Yeah, that is a great question. Kind of goes back. I'll give you a little bit of backstory how I got here.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I am an ASECT certified sex therapist, and so ASECT is kind of like the American Association of like sex educators, counselors, therapists, the really governing board in the U.S. basically. And I have my certification through them. But first you have to get your master's degree and then you get your license. So it's a lot of like grad school, post-grad experience. And then you can go on and go the ASECT route like after all of that. So I've been a counselor for a while before I even went to sex therapy route. And really how I decided on it was, this was like 6 or 7 years ago. I had gone through my own therapy for some past sexual trauma that I had. And that's where I even learned about sex therapy and didn't know there were sex therapists, like that was a legitimate job. So learned about it then. And so really through my own help, I was like, I want to do that. And it just took me a while to get here. It's easy when it's an idea, it's a thought, and then something in me a few years ago was like, let's fucking go,
that's
right?
It. Yeah, that's it.
No, I'm in the same boat as previous ones. I didn't even know this was a professional like thing that you had to go to school for.
Because I've always, one of my dreams in life is to become a psychologist myself and just like go to school for it. But I know there's also these different branches you can branch out to within the therapy field. And I never thought of sex therapist being one of those branches to branch out into. I was always like, sports therapy, just mental health counseling, childhood trauma, all that stuff. And there's sex involved in this too. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I think it's important that for ASEC to grant you a certificate and you go through all the training, all the continuing ed you go through. I think it's important to have that mental health background because, when I'm helping clients, I'm not a coach where I'm just telling you maybe sex acts to try or things to do at home. Like there definitely is this mental health component and this relationship component to, if you're trying to improve your sex life, usually what I see in my practice is, you're dealing with some deep rooted stuff. So I might work with someone for months on just like childhood attachment and anxiety and whatever other diagnosis they might have. Once you're kind of dealing with that, you're kind of putting the pieces together of, how does this impact my sexuality and what do we do about the sexuality from there, right? So a lot of times there's really a lot of background stuff you're going over in combination of it, right? And so I like to let people know that because I think people feel intimidated, like they're going to come to me and we're just going to dive right into sex. And it's not really like that. It's a part of it.
A little bit of warm up.
Yeah, it's a part of it, but I really want to know who you are as a person because let's say, for example, you have some sexual anxiety. Why is that? Is it trauma-based? Is there like some religious trauma? Is there relationship stress that you don't know how to deal with? Could be lots of reasons, right?
So I guess because obviously when people go and they search out a therapist, a lot of times they're doing something like, personal therapy, personal growth, or they're doing maybe relationship therapy or things like that. So I guess what are I guess, why do people reach out to you specifically as a sex therapist?
I honestly think, like, at a base level, if you're going to a sex therapist, you can, I mean, at least for me and the colleagues that I work with, you're not going to get any judgment. You're not going to get any shame. Like, even if you're only coming for anxiety, but let's say you're in a polyamorous relationship, that might not even be at all why you're coming to see me. You might be good on the poly relationship stuff, but you want to come to see me because you know you can be honest about that. Whereas someone who may not have this training, it's like, I'll just hide that part and just do the anxiety. But there always comes a point where it's like, if you can't be 100% honest with your therapist, you're probably like missing some of the services that you could have. So sometimes even just at a base level, it's like, Lyndsey, I really don't even need help with sex, but I know you're not going to judge me for whatever I like or whatever kind of relationship I'm in.
I did not even think about it that way. That is amazing, actually. Because you have all the training that just therapists do, plus extra.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
that's a whole new view on it for me personally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That makes 100% sense, though, especially for someone who is, I mean, my outlook on life is not what a lot of traditional people go through, especially, if you're even highly educated people who have gone through college and everything like that. Like, my lifestyle, my way of thinking is very different. So I could see why someone would actually, reach out to you and want to be comfortable. Because one of my biggest things, and I'm sure Lyndsey feels the same way, is we have to come out to people all the time. Yeah. And there's a higher level of, like, my stress level goes really high if I don't know anything about you.
Yeah.
And
now I'm telling you something that's pretty personal to me and that not a lot of people agree with as well. So there's that safety aspect to it as well. So
I think safety is a really good word.
Yeah.
Like a client of mine comes to mind that is a swinger. Her and her husband are swingers. And that's not really at all the work we've done. But they've gone to therapy before and never felt comfortable sharing that. So it's kind of like you hit a wall where it's like, yeah, they're helping me with like coping skills and stuff like that. But there's like this other piece that I feel uncomfortable even admitting. And, when I started seeing them, it was kind of like, I'm a swinger. Like get it out. And I was like, cool. So what do you want to work on?
Yeah.
Like, we don't even gotta talk about it. Cool. Got it. Totally okay. And then it was like, sometimes that's all you need to really talk about what you want.
You feel like an open book at that point.
Right.
Like if one of the things that you hide most about yourself, you're able to just get out in one of your first sessions, then who knows what you can release after that as well. Like, it just opens the door for all of this trauma and all this, hurt to come out.
Absolutely.
There's a reason why we tend to go to gay bars for the same fact as I know that I feel safe. I know I feel comfortable. I don't know when there's going to judge me because they're accepting of that lifestyle versus, if we go out to any other occasion, I'm always conscious or hyper aware of, oh shit, I'm the rainbow sheep.
You never realize like how much you look over your shoulder in a public setting until you feel 100% comfortable of where you're at.
Oh yeah.
It's like this anxiety that you didn't even know you had lifted off your shoulders, and you're like, wow, I can like relax. I'm not like constantly looking at the front door like who's coming in. Like and
I think I'm actually really glad we're talking about this because too, like in like, let's say I have a couple who comes to see me, and I'll tell you a lot of what I see at work. Because I primarily do see couples. A lot of it is couples that aren't having sex very much, and it's distressing to them. That's the important piece. Like, I'll get that question, like, what's wrong with not having a lot of sex? I'm like, nothing. If y'all are cool with that, there's no issue. But just when someone comes to me and they feel stressed about it, hey, we're having sex once a month, or we haven't had sex in a year. Like, I wonder what's going on here. And sometimes when I'm working with them, and I'm trying to help them kind of like peel back the onion of like, what is going on, right? Like, is there a reason that your libido is as low as it is or whatever? I'll find that if they're hiding a big piece of their personality, it's affecting all of their life, truly. Yeah. It's like this piece of me that I don't want to admit even to my partner. Usually those people are very anxious or very rigid. Like, everything's got to be exactly this way, and then I'll be okay. And then so if life even shifts a little bit, there's a lot of anxiety, and it can very much be related to like, are you hiding a big part of yourself? Because if you are, we might want to figure out how do we disclose, like, even if it is just to your partner. And so sometimes there can be a lot of growth there and connection there if you're vulnerable, right? A lot of vulnerability in it.
Oh, yeah.
I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Well, vulnerability is important in my eyes, but okay, good.
Very important.
Good. So I gotta ask, because you said you had to have really high level of education for this. Like, what's the training? Like, did you take courses? Like, did you have to go to certain like special professor? Like, what was your training for sex therapy?
Yeah, so it is courses, like continuing education.
Okay.
So there's a lot of courses that you can pick from as you're getting your sex therapy certification. But I went through a program called Sexual Health Alliance out of Austin, and they really provide all the course material on all the different areas that you have to have covered to meet the ASECT requirements. And so it'll be like couples, or like individual, sexual health. A big part of it is like sex education, like just the basic psycho ed around it. LGBTQ stuff. Like there's a lot of material in there on how to treat those kind of clients, different types of relationships, like non-monogamous relationships, intersection between sexuality and like minority groups. So,
they really have you learn the spectrum.
They have you learn like everything that you can think of. You've got to train on that. You've got to take courses on that, take quizzes on that. And then part of it too is you have to have so many hours of client interaction. So when you're applying for certification, they want to know like, how many hours do you have with trans clients? How many do you have with couples? How many do you have with, sexual trauma survivors, stuff like that. So They want to know like, you're taking what you learn, you're applying it in real life. And that's really what I've based my practice around too.
That's actually more thorough than I thought it
ever would have thought it was. Yeah, because I feel like the term like sex is just so broad. And like people kind of narrow their minds on what they think sex is.
Yes.
But it really is just a blanket umbrella term for so much.
Yeah.
And then when you throw therapist at the end of it, so sex therapist, then you're throwing in a whole bunch more. And
and different types of relationships too.
Oh yeah.
Because, I
think it is pretty cool though that your training is kind of like up with like the current, I don't know, just culture of America nowadays, just like with the LGBTQ population, with your trans client, with these sexual abuse clients, like just everything, like they just cover all of that, even though no matter how controversial it is, they still teach it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're really big on always continuing your education in this realm. Like even the language you use, the language we use now is going to be different in 5 years, a year. Like it changes all the time. And I'm always trying to do research and keep up with how am I being inclusive of people from all walks of life in my practice? Because the last thing you want is someone, a client to come in and like you've offended them because you're not keeping up to date with what's really going on. And I think that's why sex therapists are awesome. So even if someone's like, I just need a therapist, I'm like, I know a lot of people that, can help you with even general stuff, but who I know are keeping up to date.
Right.
What's happening.
That's amazing. Yeah. Just how comfortable they would feel.
Would you say it's like a good amount of people who go into like, are there, okay. When I go into engineering school, there's at least 300 size classes. Like there's a whole bunch of people who are trying to be engineers. Are there a decent amount of people who go into, or is this like a niche?
I think it's a niche thing,
I would assume
which I think as each year goes on, there's more and more of us.
Okay.
Like I got my certification almost a year ago, but I had been working on it for a while. Like I've been doing this work for a while, but officially got my certification last year, like finished up all the requirements for it. And like, even 5 years before that, there's probably like half the amount of people there are now. And, and even now, it's still very, very niche. Like, even in the DFW Metroplex, there's not that many of us. And so a lot of us are really busy and you'll hear like, man, y'all have a wait list. And I'm like, we need more of us. Like we need, like everyone needs to get this kind of training, but people aren't doing it. And I think being in Texas, I think religion plays a big part in it.
Huge.
Someone who has like a religious based or, faith-based kind of work frame. I mean,
we don't talk about it.
Yeah,
this is something that's
unfortunately, they unfortunately like probably aren't going to go this path. And so I know a couple of sex therapists who are sex therapists, but also are religious or can incorporate that. And I think that's almost like genius because I'm just like. That population needs it a lot, and I think they feel more comfortable if someone can incorporate the two. I don't incorporate the two. Like I'm secular, so when someone does, I think there's almost it's like a whole different level, right?
No, it's beautiful.
I think it's awesome
for sure.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, just just saying that I was going to do this podcast with my mother on the hike this morning. You know, she comes from a very Jehovah's Witness background. So the way they talk about sex was very flawed. Like my grandmother used to tell my mother basically ways on how to avoid it if her husband ever wanted it, you know, like what she could do to not have to do that work, right, type things, like, or, you know, she would talk about, you know, our periods being like the curse. You know, it's a curse that you get every month, right? Things like that. So just saying this, that I was going on the podcast, and she's like, well, where do you have to be at 1? And I was like, oh yeah, no, we're having a sex therapist. She's like, you don't say those things to your mother.
Yeah. Never say that word again. You're like, okay,
Mom, sorry.
But yeah. So I can see, especially here in Texas, where religion we're in the Bible Belt, you know, and you see more churches than you see grocery stores.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
No liquor on Sundays.
No liquor on. So guys, this is an issue. If other Texans are out there, please, can we change this?
It's a legitimate issue. And I always forget. You know, we'll be on our way somewhere, and I'm like, but I get a bottle of vodka, and I'm like, fuck, it's Sunday.
It's Sunday.
Yeah.
Why is this still a rule?
Just like Chick-fil-A. Like that's how.
I'm like, why?
And you never crave Chick-fil-A more.
Then on a Sunday. Yes.
Never fails. Yeah. No, like, and I work at a liquor store, so Saturday night, we get the biggest rush. The last 15 minutes we're open, we'll get 200 people coming through the door because everyone just all of a sudden remembers, oh crap.
Yeah.
You know, there's football games tomorrow, or there's you know, basketball championship or something, like, and we don't have liquor for our party. Got to run to the liquor store real quick. Yeah. And if you miss it out, I'm like, all right, we'll see you guys Monday. And they're like, Monday? And I'm like,
oh, no.
Yeah, you got to go a whole day, man, a whole day.
Yeah, it freaks out out-of-staters for sure.
Like for sure. Yeah,
they come here and they're like, wait, I can't buy liquor, and I'm like, no, you can't.
We're working in a restaurant. I used to go pick up beer before we would open, but you can't buy beer until after 10 a.m. On Sunday. So I'd be in line at 9:45, and I just get looks from the cashiers. They're like, you know, you can't buy that, right? And I'm like,
I got 15 minutes.
I looked at the time, I'm like, crap, I'll sit right here,
I'll
man.
walk around, yeah.
I'll be right back.
All right. So, Lyndsey, to kind of help, you know, get you in the mood to talk about queer subjects, we decided we're going to ask you a couple terms and see if you know what they mean.
Oh God, I'm ashamed to say I don't know. I'm like looking at this list. I'm like, oh damn, I'm about to learn some stuff here right now.
You're good. You know, you're gonna
some of them might be a little bit familiar. Yeah.
Say we want to return the favor, provide a little bit of education to our.
Yeah, we've done 2 different episodes where we've gone over different terms. The first one we did was just strictly lesbian terms, and the most recent one we did was just like LGBTQ plus terms. And I think so far those have been my favorite episodes.
Yeah, she loves.
I love them. Nice. They're so funny to me. Like, who comes up with these, and why do they fit so well? Like,
yeah. So don't feel bad, because most of the time when we're making these lists, we don't even know what most of them are. So
we'll usually quiz each other on them. Like, we'll come up with 10, and then she'll come up with 10, and then
Okay, awesome.
So first off, do you know what a gold star lesbian is?
I do not.
Really?
No.
That's a very common term. I'm actually a little shocked.
It's in the movies a lot too. Yeah,
really?
That was one I thought maybe.
No.
Yeah, I thought that was the only one you were going to get on this list. Okay, so a gold star lesbian is basically a lesbian who has never had sex with a woman or man.
A man.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Never has. So she's technically a virgin by heteronormative
intercourse definition.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be gold star. Silver star is also very similar, but silver star are the lesbians that have had sex with a man one time and then was like, no, not for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I really did not know.
Really?
I don't know why I've never heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, maybe that's just more common in our
community.
Things. That's one of the first terms you learn is gold star, silver star.
Okay. Because I found out, I was like, dang, I'm a silver star, second place.
Hey, I'm a gold star.
Yeah.
It's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
No, there's not. But,
in less than 30 seconds. Come on, it doesn't even count.
You're not even admitting this to the internet.
Multiple times, like, this is God. Because he talked it up so highly, and I was like, all right, show me what's up. That was it. That was what the hype was. Okay, I'm I'm out.
This poor, someone's gonna clip that at some point. Like, who knows you? And
Yeah.
be like, just so you know, bro.
Just so you know. Yeah, but he wasn't ever tied into anybody but my ex, who I no longer talk to either. So yeah,
different circle.
yeah, way different circle.
So a
This
whole
was
bunch of trauma.
my
in that
straight
area.
circle.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
my straight circle doesn't
Okay.
exist anymore.
Okay. All right. So next one. Do you know what a stone lesbian is or a stone butch?
No.
Okay. So that one's also very different. I had to look it up when I was
Okay.
younger and I was
Mhm.
looking for lesbian terms. So that one is actually sex related. It's a lesbian who does basically all the pitching. Like, she doesn't get touched.
Okay.
She never, nothing.
She's more of a giver
Yeah.
Got
than
it.
a
Okay.
taker.
Which
Okay.
confuses the shit out of straight people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just completely like, what do you mean you never, no one
Never?
touches you?
Ever? Like,
How
you
do
don't
you-
let no one. Really?
Then
How do you?
Then, like,
What's
how does that
sex?
work? What do you, yeah.
How do you
have sex?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But-
So stone butches, not me, but you, yes, all the time.
Okay.
Yes, which is that's very common in our community, is to have a lesbian. Typically, that's why we have stone butch on there. I mean, you can have a stone femme lesbian, but they're more rare. Typically,
Yeah.
you'll have someone who's butch, who just likes to do all the giving and things like that. Likes to, usually they pair up with a pillow princess. Which, do you know what a pillow princess is?
They're kind of the ones that are like on the receiving end, like
Yes.
they're not doing
Mhm.
anything
Mhm.
there. Yeah.
Yes.
And see, like I work with lesbians, and I know that that's true. I've just never heard it called
The-
stone lesbian
yeah.
or stone butch before,
Mhm.
but I know that that's common.
Very common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, so they usually pair up with each other. There's instances where it doesn't happen like that. And then I've heard people have a little bit of, like, pushback in their sex life because, one wants to give to the other and the other is not willing to receive. So
Oh, that's a common problem
Yeah.
too with us, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of femmes or people who are very much switches. They like to be dominant and they also like to be submissive and things
or
like
if
that.
one of them wants the other one to give more, and they don't typically do that, so it's kind of like, I'm not really into that.
Yes.
Like there could
Yeah.
definitely
Yes.
be some issues
So it's like
there.
some compatibility as far as sex that you kind of have to find
figure
out and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something that you get whenever you're giving a woman an orgasm. There's like just this insane joy or thing you get.
like,
So
you
not
feel it
being
in your
able
gut.
To, yeah,
like, you're
not
just
being
like,
able to-
wow, like, I did that.
Well, and that's
yeah.
like the turn on to you. Is like,
Exactly.
oh, I'm turned
Yeah.
on now, right? Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, so next one. Do you know what a doppelbanger is?
I have a guess.
Okay.
And I'm gonna
It's a pretty
sound
good guess.
I'm gonna sound stupid if I'm like wrong, but is it like when you sleep with someone who looks like you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm
that.
thinking of the episode of Broad City where have y'all seen Broad City?
I have not.
No.
Y'all haven't seen Broad City?
I don't know what Broad
Oh,
City
shit,
is.
It's so good.
I know what it is, but
It's so good. It's so funny. But yeah, it's like one of the main characters like starts seeing this woman, and everyone's like, she looks exactly like you. She's like, no, she doesn't. She like literally looks so much like
You're
her.
like twins?
Yeah, they
Yes,
are. She's
yes.
like, no, she doesn't. You're watching. You're like, she fucking does.
That's in like the earlier episodes, right?
Yeah, it is.
My friend tried to get
yeah.
me to watch that, and I think we watched like half of the first season, and that I do remember that now. That
Yes,
they looked
yes.
exactly alike.
So
She was like, "No,
much.
we don't," and I'm like, "Y'all are the same,
like
person.
same hairstyles,
Yeah.
same body
Yes.
type, like everything.
I think
It
they
was
even
so
had like the
funny.
same freckle on the back of their shoulder
Yeah,
too. It was like they were the same person. Yeah, I haven't had it with looks, but I've had it with personality. I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, I can't date me in another body.
You're
Like,
dating
that's-
a Virgo. You're dating another
Yeah,
Virgo.
but like we are completely opposite
are.
Virgos.
You are
Completely
correct.
opposite.
You are
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
No.
Yeah, she's not the first Virgo I've dated either.
Really.
Yeah,
Is that a
I've
thing?
dated one more. I apparently, but I don't know people's birthdays until like I start to get to
Oh,
know
of
them.
course.
So I'm just like, oh crap, I guess I'm just attracted to me.
I mean, I've heard Virgos are supposed to be very vain, right? Is that y'all like part of your
Vain.
thing? Like you
into yourself.
yes, you're
kinda,
very into
yeah.
yourself.
I'm
you're
more-
right about things.
Yes.
and you're
Yeah.
very,
Oh, my way or the highway.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
No, for sure. I've also been called a golden retriever, though. That's the other
I
side
could
of the
see you as
person.
a golden retriever.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so multiple people have called me that, and I never
Yeah.
knew what it was
could
until
see that.
my girlfriend called me that. And I was like, that's a thing? Like, I've always heard that. Like, oh, you're such a golden retriever. I'm like, is there a dog behind me? Like, who are they talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing though.
I've heard it's a good thing, but
That's
yes,
a good. That's like a compliment to
Yeah, I
me.
would
That's a
say
good.
so,
That's a
too.
good.
But then you
quality.
combine it with my Virgo traits, and I'm just very I'm right in my mind. And like, you can sit here and you can prove me wrong. And I'm like, nah, I'm right. Or I'll see something and I'm like surfing. I can do that. What? Never surfed a day before in my life. I have horrible balance. I can't even stand on one foot without falling over, but I can do that.
I have the confidence.
Easy.
The confidence is awesome. So you try.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, no, that was a really good guess. That was very impressive. What about a verse or a switch?
I think a switch is like if you can like top or bottom.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Someone who doesn't matter. They can take all forms. It's all good. Yeah.
They can be submissive. They can be dominant. They're just a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
I would say that's the most that we see is typically. I mean, typically you'll have basically like is it say verse? Yeah, you'll have a verse bottom or a verse top, but I mean, typically lesbians like to give and receive.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, you know, like speaking of switch, I'm going back to something I said earlier about like, you know, things being very rigid, like, because I've worked with partners where like, you know, you identify one, like, no, I'm a top or I'm dominant only, you know, and sometimes I'm just doing work to get a little bit of flexibility there. Like you can still primarily identify one way, but I'm like, but what if, you know, you tried something else? Maybe you would like it. You know, like I think the flexibility kind of can spice things up. Because, you know, if I have couples that have conflict there, like we always do the same thing, you know, it's like, okay, let's try this. But it can be, if you identify one way, there can be some of that anxiety or rigidity of like, I don't know what it's going to be like.
Yeah, it's not what I'm used to.
Yeah, like it kind of doesn't, it like,
Do you give like
paradox.
suggestions on like how they can switch to the other?
Yeah, I'll always like start really small. Like
Okay.
you don't gotta like totally switch it up, but it's like, you know, if you're always doing dominant things, like even outside of sex, I'm like, what if you let them come to you, you know, or what, like just little suggestions here to kind of see what it would feel like, see if that helps them or not.
Just
But-
dip your toes in the water a little bit.
Yeah,
Feel
because
it
if it's
out.
like too much at one time, they're not gonna. It's like too uncomfortable.
Yeah,
you
of
know?
course,
So,
yeah.
but I thought that was interesting.
baby steps.
Oh,
Baby
yeah.
steps. You walk
Mhm.
before you run.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
I could. Okay, yeah, that's good. No, that's good. Okay. All right, Lyndsey. What about 100-footer?
I do not know what that
Okay.
means.
I mean, just look at Denise.
Fuck you. Look at Lyndsey.
Hey, it's only because I just cut my hair, but yes.
100-footer in our language is basically saying that, you know, it's a lesbian, that you can tell is a lesbian from 100 feet away.
Oh,
So yeah, so
okay.
typically someone who, fuck you, bro.
Hey, Denise.
I started this podcast by saying I wasn't a 100-footer.
She really did. I lit her up. Because that was the same. We went to go to the lake to have some kind of lake party, and I'm walking up and I'm late everywhere I go. I'm always late. So I'm like, I wonder where they're at. And I'm like, I see all these groups of people, and then I just see the backwards hat, the trunks, and the sports bra. And I'm like, it's Denise. Let's go. It's this way. And I'm telling you, it was more than 100 feet away. You were far.
Okay, so the main reason that I've said I wasn't a 100-footer is mostly because of men. Because I've learned men will hit on anything. Like I can be on a like strict like tie, you know, backwards hat, everything, you know, hair maybe even up, not even to the side and everything, and just completely in a man's attire, and I still, you know, they'll still ask
They're
me
like,
for my
hey,
number and
what's
things
up?
like that. So,
Can I get you a drink?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like
Interesting.
you're not reading the room, bro.
Yeah, no, I would
do they ever?
ever. Just like, that's a female? Long hair? Yep, standing alone. It's my time to shine.
Okay, I've come to terms with I may be a 100-footer.
Maybe.
It's up in the air.
It's possible. It's possible.
I still wear makeup. Okay.
Eyeliner. You wear eyeliner.
And I have the long hair. You know,
Yeah,
my little
yeah.
tiny rat tail. It's okay. All right.
It's okay
It's
with
all
the
right.
backwards hat and the
We can pin
bandana
this
and the
conversation
rings
later.
and the okay. All right, we'll pin it for later then.
Okay.
Wait, this one's my favorite.
It is Lyndsey's favorite.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the game of flats?
No.
Explain.
It is, what is it, the 18th century?
18th century.
18th century term for sex between two females.
Wow.
That's
She
this is
loves
like
it.
the best thing you've ever heard. The game of flats.
Game of Flats.
Mm-hmm,
When I hear Game of, I always think of Thrones.
Hey,
but
right,
now
yeah.
it's Game of Flats.
Yes.
Got
yeah.
it.
No, when I'm not gonna say if, when I open my own bar. Game of
That's
flats. That's it.
I
That's
love
the
it.
name. Yeah. We're gonna have board games.
I love
So
it.
That was one of those
game.
weird terms. I think we found that term together too. We were
That was our
researching
first,
together,
our first
and I saw it
one.
and I was like, I've never heard of this in my life. And
I laughed for days. I was like, that is amazing. I love that term so much. Why did we not use that still?
the game of flight. Well, you do now.
Yeah, I do
all the time.
All the time.
Okay, and we covered Pillow Princess. All right, Hoover Dammed. Do you know what Hoover Damming is?
I don't know.
All right, so think of the Hoover Dam. I think it's a dam that's, preventing from the floodgates opening, right? Things like that. So when you think of women, it's basically like the same thing as blue balls for us.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Got it.
I like that one too.
Yeah. I think that was your word as well.
That was my word. Yeah. I think there's another word for it, and I was like, well, that kind of sounds like what if we called it Hoover Dammed? And then that's what we stuck with. So
Okay.
Yep.
I'll have to trademark that.
Kind of close to it, beaver damming. Beaver damming is our term for cock blocking. So you dam
Okay.
the beaver.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then the last
Good.
one I'm going to ask you, because it's kind of relevant, because it's one of the issues that we talk about all the time, is, do you know what LBD is?
Is that the lesbian bed death?
That is
Yeah.
lesbian bed death. Yeah.
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 Which I actually want to ask y'all. So maybe I'm like a little confused here. I wonder why lesbians get that term, because I feel like that can happen to any couple.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I wonder why that's, because like when you hear that term, you think of lesbian bed death, like particular, right?
Particularly just lesbians.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
I mean, I would say it seems to happen from what I've seen. And again, this is just my own experience. I don't have very much heterosexual data to go on, but it seems to happen faster with lesbians, just because I'm assuming our libido is different from men, just in general. We tend to love, things like cuddling and just being together and just being around, and maybe even just watching
spending
TV
time together.
Yeah, like
Okay.
that's kind of what
you kind of just fall into the role of really, really close best friends.
Exactly.
And you just share the same bed.
And it
Okay.
happens frequently, and it happens pretty early on comparative to what I've seen. Like typically when you see it with heterosexual couples, at least from the friends that I have, it's 5-6 years in that now it's been treated
They're
this
kind of
way,
hitting
or
in a roadblock.
maybe they're already married,
Okay.
or things like
Yeah.
that. Whereas lesbians can hit it after a year.
I've
Okay.
even heard as early as 6 months.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
real fast.
Yeah, whereas just you turn into friendships. You turn into, it's basically like having a best friend.
No, I mean, you still kiss and you hug
Yeah.
and you hold each other, but there's nothing else.
But as far as
involved.
like sexual activity,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
because our love language, our love language, sex is a part of it, and it's very exciting, especially at first, especially when you're first coming out too. Like you kind of want to be a little slutty and you want to experience, women. And
Yeah, I mean, I compare it to whenever I first came out as gay, I was like, I felt like a teenage boy. I was like, I want to hump every female that comes near me. Come here. Like, yeah.
Okay.
And then it's just kind of like, oh, well, now I'm a little more chilled back.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying they were having a listener basically say that the term that when you first come out and you're first learning how to be gay and learning how to be queer, you are a baby dyke in the lesbian community. You get called a baby dyke because you're new. It sounds so sweet and innocent and, oh, cute baby dyke. But really, it's more like when you first come out, you're like feral. Like you're ready. You're like,
let me at him.
Let me at him.
Like you've been in captivity your whole life and now you're just experiencing freedom for the first time.
Yes.
No one can hold you back.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. But yeah. So, that's something that's really big on ours. Have you ever had, I guess you experience people with low libido all the time. What's a suggestion that you give them whenever they're going through it?
Yeah, a lot of it is like trying to figure out why the low libido is there. Like usually when it's easy to split the two in our mind, like if you're going through a phase where like you have a lot of casual sex, which is like totally fine. Sometimes people, when they start to feel like emotionally comfortable with someone, it almost feels impossible to combine the two. Like, how do we get the passion back when like we're so comfortable?
Okay.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that can be a big part of it for anyone, any kind of relationship. And so sometimes I'm really working with them on, how do you combine the two? Like, how can emotional safety be sexy? Like, maybe you almost have to identify that. Like, I know for me, Like I'm married to Andrew now, as y'all know, but like prior to him, you know, I didn't have like any great, safe, healthy relationship. So whenever there's like toxicity involved, my relation to it is always like the sex was really great. And it was like toxic as fuck, you know? So you get with someone who's healthy and safe, and it's just like, if your only association to sex is when it's like chaotic, it is almost like, well, how do I even like, what does that even mean for me now? Right? You almost have to redefine it when that's the case.
I like that. And that makes sense. Sorry,
I mean, I've heard like,
yeah,
and then like the whole connotation around like makeup sex. Like you fight, you break up, and then you make up, and then it's just magical.
It really like is. Like in my experience,
kind of like builds like a toxicity around just sex in general. So like you have to have something bad happen.
It's a heightened of like
like
so
your adrenaline's up, your emotions are high. So
you could be like picking fights, like not even knowing. Like the funny thing is like you do shit, you don't even realize why you're doing it, but you could be like picking fights because you're trying to build that passion. And then if you want a healthy relationship, you almost have to figure out like, how do you build the passion in a healthy way, which doesn't always sound very sexy. Like it can be.
It can be.
But initially it's kind of like, man, but you know, back in the day when we were like fighting all the time, I mean, there was a ton of makeup sex and that was so great. You know, like you really have to just figure that out. It's interesting.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I guess we'll go into some questions that I have a little bit prepared for you. We've already covered a little bit of lesbian bed death, but just a question that we get asked all the time, quite annoying, usually from males.
All the time. Top 3 questions.
But I guess in your opinion, if you were to summarize, what does lesbian sex mean to you in general?
Okay.
Or I suppose, what does lesbian sex mean to the sex therapist community?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It means more orgasms.
Yes, it sure does.
She said it, guys. That
Y'all
wasn't
hop
me.
on the train.
It was her.
Yeah, I mean, there's been like, you know, research and data on it that lesbians have more orgasms than a straight woman or, you know, woman having sex with a male, because I think lesbian sex is not just penis and vagina sex, right? Like I think traditional definition is intercourse, and I'll hear that all the time, you know, like, oh, we haven't had sex in so long, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? You know, like, I haven't had intercourse in that long, you haven't done anything sexual. I think lesbian sex is all about I think it incorporates more than straight sex. It's not penetration. It could be oral. It could be penetration. You have a strap on, right? Like it could just be. I think it can mean a lot of different things. And I also think, well, I guess I want to hear y'all's opinion too, but like, you know, everyone just automatically thinks of scisoring, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
that's not really.
We've had a conversation about scissoring already.
Everyone just thought that's what it is, and I'm like, well, I don't really think so.
Yeah, because I think the whole idea of sex is people think that like your 2 private parts is what I grew up calling them.
Yeah,
have to touch or go into each other. Otherwise, it's not sex. And I'm like, well, I can have an orgasm without touching my stuff to somebody else's stuff. Like,
right.
Very hard too. So
yeah.
Yeah, I would if I were to define it, because it is actually, it's how do lesbians have sex is a question even in our community that's not completely agreed upon, just because it means different thing for different couples, different lesbians, different, especially, you know, depending on, you know, because some lesbians, they think, you know, strap-on sex is kind of where it gets there, or some lesbians think oral sex is way more intimate than like doing any type of like fingering or anything like that, or toys. You know, some lesbians are pro toys, some lesbians are not pro toys. So I mean, it's such a question. It's such a broad question for us because it really does depend on who you talk to. So for me, in my opinion, I would say lesbian sex is just anything where it's 2 females together. They're having a good time. They're experimenting, exploring each other's bodies. And that's pretty much where I kind of leave it. Now, it's hard whenever you're talking about sex because, again, different bases, baseball. Different bases mean different things. Like for me, I won't perform oral sex on someone who I don't know very well. So like one night stand, that's typically not something that I would typically do. To me, that's way more intimate. Whereas some people, it's the reverse. Some people won't let them penetrate.
Yeah.
To them, that's very different. Whereas for me, using any type of toys that penetrate or whatever, game on, I don't care, I can do that with you the first night, right, type thing. But just for my mouth to be on your parts, like, those are, to me, that's a very intimate thing. So that for me is, I guess, home base.
Yeah, it's almost like defining what intimacy is to you in a way as well. That I think everyone can answer that differently.
Yes.
I think lesbian sex is definitely different depending on which couple you ask. Like, your sex can be your sex per your couple. Like, it's so different. And like you said, like, a lot of people find oral sex a lot more intimate. Like, I know a lot of straight couples where the guy in the relationship is like, that's gross. I'm never going down on you.
DJ Khaled.
Yeah. But then they expect the female to go down on them. And I'm like, how is that any different?
Oh, yeah. Which I think is like such bullshit. Guys like, I don't do that. It's like, I don't do that either then.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
it's all off the table then. And then they're like, well, but wait. It's like I know for me, like, I've never had sex with a woman before. So I'm really referring to sex with men and when it was more casual for me. I was always really cautious about oral sex just from like a health perspective. There's risk to get an STD there and you're not typically doing it with a condom on. So that was something that I wouldn't do if it was just casual. Like, I would almost want to know. I think it's almost intimate in that way too. There's like a risk to it, I think. And so that was always something I reserved for someone I knew a little bit better, knew that they didn't have an STD, something like that. So I always like take that into consideration too. Of course.
Yeah. No, that's what, to me, that's actually one of the reasons it's very intimate is, something I won't do in a one night stand. And But as far as lesbian sex in general, very vague, very different depending on how you ask. Because with the heteronormative understanding of penetration as technically the way sex occurs, I mean, with that definition, technically you could consider me someone who doesn't have sex very often at all because it's very rare, extremely rare for me to be penetrated by a toy. Like, that's a really like special occasion, birthday,
once in a blue
Valentine's
moon,
type thing.
Holiday,
like,
we're celebrating
rare.
Something.
Exactly. However, anyone who knows me, I wouldn't say that I don't have a lot of sex. Like, I'm very sexually active. I really do enjoy. Anyone who dates me it's like the 12-year-old boy hound that is constantly like, babe, come on.
Bedroom, let's do it. Couch, we don't even have to move. Like, right here.
It's Sunday fun day, babe. You know what that means. Type thing, so
we're in bed by 10 p.m. Let's do it.
Yeah, but getting back to the scissoring thing, in my experience, and this is not everybody, as we've learned the hard way, scissoring is very rare. It's not something that, out of all the sexual interactions I've had, I can honestly say I think I've scissored enough times to put on one hand.
Yeah.
Like, it's very rare. And to me, it never worked for me.
Yeah.
It works for other people, I do know. Yeah. But
well, and I feel like it's for... I'm not speaking for everybody because what I'm about to say, like, I'm not trying to shame anyone if they like scissoring, but I feel like it's one of those things that is almost for the male gaze.
Yes.
It's like this male fantasy. And it's the same with like, if you see, two women making out and they're just doing it because there's a lot of men around. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's like this line to be drawn where it's like, do you enjoy that, or is this more of like a male fantasy?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm saying I've only really had experiencing the scissoring with my first relationship, and I really got nothing out of it. Yep. But I also kind of got the point, like, if you're the one on top, you get majority out of it. But if you're the one on the bottom, then there's not so much.
Okay, I could kind of see that.
Because, like, I did the top once, and I was like, okay, I can kind of feel a little something, but I cannot stretch my legs. I am so
There is
inflexible.
a lot of
There's like that was a workout. I was like, I'm dying. I'm so tired.
Your legs have to be flexible in a certain way.
Right, and you gotta like almost like touch your foot to your head. I'm like, it's too much for me.
Yeah. I will say.
So I only had the one experience where I was the one on top doing the actual scissoring, and I was like, okay, I can kind of see it, but I had to tap out because I was just exhausted. Yeah. But then
it is a lot of work.
Yeah, the other person would be on top and they would be like having the time of their life. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you're having fun because it's just kind of feels like rubbing to me. It doesn't really feel very good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different for everyone. Me and Lyndsey actually ran into the trouble of kind of shaming because I forgot what episode it was, but it was one episode we were talking about maybe stereotypes or something where we were like,
it was our sex episode. It was it?
Yeah, I feel like we covered the sex episode was the way that we learned that some people do enjoy it.
It was like that was all in one episode. Like we were talking about it and then we sat.
No, we shamed it the first like 3 episodes. Yeah, it was like the first like 2 or 3 episodes.
Jeez, guys, I'm eating my words. I feel bad.
Yeah, we were like, that's not a thing. That's all for porn. Like if you see 2 girls scissoring, it's not, it doesn't happen. It's not okay. And then like we decided to put a sex education episode out there. And so me and Lyndsey went on a deep dive and did a lot of videos and a lot of articles. And then we found out that for a lot of lesbians, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It is something that actually works. Tribbing too. Tribbing was something that I never really enjoyed. I can understand why people would do tribbing, but it was just not part of my wheelhouse. So I kind of was like, that's not real. That's for
you
men.
Only see that on like the.
And me and her, we got corrected pretty
hardcore.
Okay.
Yeah,
hardcore.
Okay.
But it was nice because we corrected ourselves versus someone like telling us like, how dare you kind of deal. Yeah. It's like we went back and we're like, oh, by the way, sorry. We did a little bit more research on it. Like we were being a little bigoted about that idea. Just because we don't do it doesn't mean no one else does it kind of deal.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a decent amount of lesbians that actually enjoy scissoring. It's just it's not in my experience type thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Type thing. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have today? All right. So one thing I do because you are a therapist, I really want to get into like, do you have clients that have issues like past trauma with therapy or reaching out to a therapist or what's that?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think like. In my little bubble of the world and all my friends who are therapists are kind of like me. So I'll have kind of like similar ideology. So in my little bubble, I like to think you reach out to a therapist, they make you feel good about who you are. But unfortunately, that's not the case for everybody. I think there's a lot of people out there who still very much believe that it's not okay to be gay, to be queer, to get married to the same sex. And so if you reach out to a therapist who has that belief and, you're married to a woman and they already make it known that they're not okay with that, I mean, that's a pretty shitty experience because it kind of says like, well, I don't want to fucking talk to you then because you already don't like who I am. And that sucks. And I think it turns people away from getting help. And, if someone ever says like, yeah, I don't think I really want to get help or get services, like, I understand. I don't know if I would want to continue trying either if that's been my experience, especially when it happens multiple times.
Oh right? Yeah, no. I mean, as someone who, luckily, me and Lyndsey, we very much, someone looks at us, we're 100-footers, fine.
She said it. It is on the internet from now until recorded. The end of days. It is there.
But typically, you look at us, and we don't necessarily have to come out to people. However, like whenever reaching out for me and Sam got therapy for the wedding, for planning the wedding, because I was turning into a monster because I was so stressed. And that was a big thing, is trying to find a therapist that had, like, we significantly seeked out someone who put in their bio or their thing LGBT, friendly, type thing. And if that wasn't made a point, I really didn't want, because I don't want to come out to you. I don't want to even go through that. Like, is she okay with it? Because we already had that with vendors. Like, there was getting married in Texas, I knew that there were going to be certain vendors that maybe they wouldn't be okay with it. Yeah. Maybe they would shy us away, and that would just be another added level of stress if we got rejected because it was 2 women.
Oh my God. My cousin, he's gay, and I was in his wedding, and he forwarded me this email he got. Like, it was like, I don't remember what vendor it was for, But it was like, hey, me and my fiance, future husband, whatever, like made it known, like this is two men getting married. And the response that he got back was very much like not an auto reply, but like a template reply. And at the end, it was like, we wish you and your future wife the best of luck. And it was like, you didn't even like think, you know what I mean? Like how, and so of course he didn't go with that. It was like they lost business because he was like, you didn't even like listen to me. Nope. Yeah, I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, no, actually, I made it a point after having the wedding with the vendors that I had that I enjoyed. I was like, you need to put on your website, on something, on anything that, you know, you're willing to do LGBT weddings, because that is huge. Like that is, we specifically, whenever we were looking at vendors, we specifically went through a queer website that basically vets them for us. Before, but there were still people like our videographer we had to, you know, reach out to, and that was, you know, a stress level. So I can't even imagine, same thing in therapy. That was, you know, stress level, like having to go and try to figure out if I'm going to have to if you're gonna be okay with
I have a whole page on my website that is just for LGBT services. So you gotta have you gotta make it known. Like you can't assume. And again, in my little bubble, I like to think like all therapists are, but it's like, no, they're not. You got to make it very clear so someone knows. Like you said, you don't even want to have to come out. You want to just be able to show up. Yep, me and my wife, cool, got it, and we're
people. We're just people.
Yeah, that's it.
We're just people.
We're here.
I shouldn't have to put a label on myself to define me as who I am, because I'm just a person. Yeah, it's just who I choose to love.
Yes. So what, with that being said, the bad experiences of therapy, have you had anyone who experiences conversion therapy, or have you ever do you know any other therapists that believe in conversion therapy?
Not personally, but they are out there. I don't agree with it at all. I think it's awful. I think it leads to a lot of harm. And I think like you'll hear these success stories of conversion therapy, but it's on how you define success. Like if by success you mean you hide your sexuality and you just live as a straight person, even if you're not really straight, then sure, you can go and be a success story. But it ends up really being harmful because there's no proof. There's not one incidence where it's actually changed someone's sexuality. It's really just hidden it, suppressed it. And you know what happens is that person just, I mean, I can't even imagine like the mental, you know, turmoil that they go through, because you can't, like, when can you ever be authentic, you know? Creates a lot more mental illness and harm.
Oh, I can only imagine. And then it's one of those things where like you, even just with, not even just with sexuality, just with like any kind of feelings or any kind of trauma, the more you bury it, it can stay buried for half your life. It can stay buried for majority of your life, but eventually it's going to come up, and then you could be the most unhappy person in the whole world. And you just feel so not you and so dissociated from yourself. And then that just leads to a whole bunch of future issues.
Yeah, well, and you know, hurt people. So you've got people out here violating other people, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the root of it they're hiding. You know, I'm not saying it's okay to hurt people, but it's like they're hurting too. Yeah. And it's because they're having to shove away who they are, and it just sucks. Like it's just shitty.
No, hurt people hurt. I'm a big true crime buff, so I listen to true crime podcasts all the time. And a lot of times I see the stories where, you know, it was someone who was, you know, queer, who was a serial killer and anything, and usually the root behind the issue of them attacking the people they're attacking was the fact that they couldn't be out and proud at home.
They were forced to keep it to themselves.
Yep.
So yeah, it's crazy to me. Whenever they are cured, right? You said it does cause harm. I agree, it causes harms to the person who is cured, right? Because they might not be living as their authentic self, but it also affects the people that they interacted with for the homosexuality. Because I've listened to some people who maybe they had a sexual experience, and then the person that they were with is now born again, or has now been converted, and now they're okay, and they're
a success story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
they constitute those sexual experiences as basically, you know, the biggest sin that they ever went through. Whereas the other person who was receiving it may have thought of that as such a
beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they're like the center of this like huge mistake. Like, oh, that was a mistake. That was awful.
Yes.
I did that. I'm never engage in that again. It's
Yes.
like, well, how would you feel if someone that you were intimate with was saying that
about
to you?
Exactly.
Oh, well, my experience with you was a huge mistake. I'd be like, well, fuck me.
Like, worst mistake I
right?
could have ever made in my life. I'll never make it again.
Yeah,
And,
and it was like, whoa, okay. So yeah, it did. Like, that's so deeply painful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
very much so. It affects two people. I'm also on a thing where I honestly don't think conversion therapy works. I've had an ex who actually went through, her grandparents sent her off to a Christian camp in her adolescence. I think she was 16 when she went off there. And ironically, you know, being around a whole bunch of girls who were sent for the same thing, going to this camp, I mean, she was kicked out because she was sleeping with other people because she refused to be converted.
If anything, what you did was just put me in the middle of where I wanted to be.
Yeah,
so.
It was like, I mean, I'll make the most of this.
So you're to an all-girls school?
Okay. Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it. But yeah.
That's what I would consider a success story.
She won therapy. She won conversion therapy.
She beat it out. Yeah.
But yeah, no, conversion therapy is such a big issue. And I do know that's one of the reasons that we, as a community, queer communities, we're afraid to reach out for therapy for any type of help or anything, especially depending on the area you're in. That's a big thing. And then the things that you're seeing in the media right now with trans being attacked, with drag
shows
being attacked, like what we're going through right now. It's a scary time. So I could see.
Well, and I hate when people, like therapists or anyone, or family members, friends, anyone, when they'll say like, oh, I don't think it's okay, but you know, it's okay. Like, I don't think it's okay, but I'm not judging you. And I'm like, but you're inherently judging by saying that.
Yes.
You know, like, if I'm gay and I go to a therapist and if I find out like, well, I don't really think that's okay, I'm kind of against that, but it's okay that you do it. I'm like, that's
what
still
a
not
backhanded
okay.
comment.
Like, I don't want to hear that. And so I think especially with mental health professionals, I think who the therapist is matters. Like, at the core, if you are an ally, you yourself are gay, you are like an activist, whatever, that's going to matter in the therapy room, in the session. Because if you're not that, I think you already inherently have a limitation to help that person. So it like totally matters.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Actually, that phrase is such a phrase that's so common, just in general, even with just casual conversation where I'll be talking to someone at the bar, and then they'll find out that, you know, the bartender is my wife, and they'll be like, oh, well, I don't really agree with that, but yeah, let's continue talking about football. And so in the back of my mind, I'm just like, okay, so this is a conversation that now I don't want to have. Like, now I don't even want to engage with you. Or, you know, you even get that with family members too, whenever you come out to them, whereas like you might already know you're going to get a little pushback, but you do that, you come out to them, you have that courage, and then they'll say the things like, well, I still love you. I don't agree with what you're doing, but I still love you.
Yeah, no, I was like, I went through that personally. Like I haven't really come out to my extended family outside of my little group right here in Texas. The rest of my family lives in a really small town in Minnesota. I got a couple members in California, but like, I just don't really want to push it to them. But this last summer, I kind of accidentally came out to my godmother, or my aunt, who lives up there, and she's, you know, born and raised Catholic, very small town, like just very thorough in her beliefs. And I was on the phone with my girlfriend, and she pulls up and she's like, oh, who are you talking to? And I was like, oh, my friend, because that's another thing that you have to say. Yeah. My friend Isa, or that's what she goes by. Her real name is, you know, Isabel. And she was like, oh, that's a really pretty name. And I was like, oh my gosh, isn't it? Like, I just think it's so beautiful. I tell her all the time. Not realizing what I was saying was like almost incriminating in my sense.
Which is so sad, because you should be able to say
that. And I'm so excited. Like, I think her name is
Yeah.
so beautiful. Why wouldn't I want to shout it? So, and then we come back to it, and she brings me to the side, and she's just like, yeah, so, you know, you're dating a girl, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I've been dating girls for a couple years now. You know, I'm just gonna let you know now, like I'm a lesbian. And she gave me a hug, and she's like, like, I don't agree with it. It doesn't match with my religious views. She said, but I'm just happy that you're able to be you. And so you can just continue to do that. But it was more of like I still love you, but we're not ever going to talk about this.
Yeah.
And she's been down to Texas to visit a few times. She's met my girlfriend multiple times. And she's always so nice to her. Hi, Issa, how are you doing today? And just, gives her a big hug. But then on the way out, she'll give me a hug. And she's like, oh, it was nice to see your friend again. She'll never refer to her as my girlfriend. It's always just friend. So we're roommates in her eyes, essentially, just so she can make it okay for her mind to process that. And like, that sucks because like, I don't feel like I can invite her to my weddings, or I don't feel like I can invite her to family events, or I don't feel like I could bring my family to her because she'll feel some type of way about us sleeping in the same bed.
Yeah, that's so hard because it's like, I think it's like, how can the two be simultaneous, right? Like, I love you, but also I'm not okay with, not even just a part of you, like, I'm not okay with who you are, is really
pretty
like
much,
what it means.
pretty much.
And it's also hard because you also don't just like cut off your family support. Yep. Like, you love them too, but it just feels like there's this automatic wedge between you. Like, I'll visit you, I love you, we have fun in these ways, but like, I can't really be myself around you.
And you can't really talk about your life with me. And it's a little frustrating because like, she was my favorite aunt growing up, and I'm just like, you are still the only aunt I have come out to, but I feel further apart from you now than I've ever before. So and I can't imagine I'm the only one out there who has gone through something like that as well, even with like your actual parents. Like, this is just like a distant relative of mine. Like, I can't imagine when this is like your everyday household.
Actually, I've no, you say that because I know you're thinking about proposing and you're thinking about, so do you, because I know you're not out to your grandparents, do you plan on inviting them to the wedding, or are you just going to pretend that doesn't exist?
I've never said it out loud, so I don't think I want to say it on camera, but I have my own thoughts on that. Okay. But, yeah, it's I haven't come out to them, but they're so old in their age now, and they're just not doing so well physically and mentally. So I don't think that they would be able to travel to me for my wedding anyways. Okay. However, I would like to invite my cousins.
Okay.
But one of my cousins, the one I was closest to growing up, he is actually finalizing his stages and everything to become a priest for the Catholic Church.
Great. I mean, the Pope said it's fine.
That's what I'm saying. It's okay. Yeah, so like, I'd love for him to come because I just have so many good memories of growing up with him, and going sledding in the snow and fishing and getting lost in the woods together. Just like, he was like the brother I never had that lived across the country. But I would love for him to be at my wedding, but I've never really talked about it. I mean, I'm sure he knows. But it's just kind of like we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It's kind of like one of those things where I'm pushing off and pushing off and pushing off, and
I mean, that's normal.
Eventually, it'll come to it.
I knew when getting married, I was gonna, against my mother's wishes, I invited my entire Jehovah's Witness family from Mexico. Like, I knew they weren't gonna show up. I knew,
but it's still nice to get the invitation.
But I still invited them. Same thing with Sam has a cousin who we've always known that she's against gay marriage, so she didn't come to the proposal. She didn't come to she won't say that she made plans for the day of the wedding, but she purposely, right? But I mean, she's always been supportive in other facts. So like, she went to the bachelorette party. She had like she
that cousin
went to
Wow,
yeah, she's anti-gay marriage.
Never got those vibes because she sure lived it up in that bachelorette party.
Exactly. Wow. So she's very supportive of Sam and things like that. But she just
loves her cousin.
She wouldn't want to be there to support something that she doesn't believe in, right? So I mean, it's just something that we, I guess, as a queer community, kind of have to
like, you love the person, but you don't necessarily love what they do. Yep. So there's kind of like that middle ground that you try to meet them at.
Yeah. I attribute it to the same fact as if I were to go to a wedding. Oh man, this might get a little political. Sorry guys. If I were to go to a wedding every episode. And it was MAGA themed. Like, right. So I would go and I'd be like, well, I don't really support anything that's over here, but I'm here for you.
Yeah. I love you and I support you.
Yeah. That would be so hard for me because I feel like it's two polar opposite things. Like, gay wedding is just like, love people for who they are.
Yes.
But MAGA is like, I hate everyone who isn't like me. You know what I mean? Like there's like that
Yeah.
undertone where I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I'm okay with that.
Like,
You know, like,
I love going to weddings that are all about love. This one seems to be the opposite of that. So
It's their community that they've
Yeah.
chosen, but it's okay. But as far as feeling odd or feeling different or having to go through some type of conversion, actually one thing I do want to talk to you about is like your trans clients. So you said you had to get a certain amount of hours with.
Yeah, you don't have to get a certain amount of hours directly with trans clients, but they will ask you like when I turn in my application for certification, they'll ask you like how many hours you have with trans clients. And I have worked with several trans clients, whether they're in the middle of a transition, whether that's just how they identify, like they might never get a surgery, or it could even be, you know, a non-binary client, like maybe they're not trans, maybe they're just non-binary. But you know, they like trans people, just like queer people in general, but like particularly trans people are, you know, literally being murdered for being trans. I mean, they just face this inherent hate from the world and in society. And so I get really peeved. Like my blood like starts boiling when someone is like, oh, they're making it up. They're just doing this for attention. And I'm like, the attention is literally getting murdered. Like they're not
it's
doing
such a negative
Yeah,
attention. Why would they want
Yeah, and I'm
to...
like, they would never do that if this is not how they really felt of like who they are. So, you know, I have a special place in my heart for trans people and trans clients. And, you know, some of them if they are getting a surgery, part of the requirement to get a surgery is having a letter from a mental health professional, just stating that what their mental state is, that, you know, they're doing this for kind of like you're just kind of showing proof that this surgery is going to help them with their mental health is really like what the basis of it is. And so I've written quite a few of those letters for.
So is that required like in Texas, or is that like a full like federal?
I believe that's a federal requirement.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have to have like a therapist note to...
Yeah, and so there's
crazy.
a group of us, like I'm on this list because like every therapist has a different opinion on it. And some therapists want to see the client like, you know, X number of times and get this whole full picture. I'm not of that belief. I'm kind of like, if I meet you and you're telling me this surgery is going to make me feel better, it's going to make me feel more aligned with the gender that I identify with, and that's going to make my mental health better, then like I'll write you the letter. And that could be me meeting you one time. You know what I mean? Like I don't make people wait for that.
Yeah, the thinking that adults are literally just playing dress up to try to get, you know, either attention or try to be able to go into women's restrooms or trying to, like, to me is why. And this, I feel like this with being gay too, whenever they think that it's a choice, I'm like, why would
I choose to put myself through that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why would I choose to be a pariah for my family? Why would I choose to have society look at me like I'm an alien type things? Like, so why would you choose that?
Yeah.
So no, this is a choice that typically if you decide to transition, you've thought about it. It's
probably been a constant thought all the time.
Yeah.
And it can be going, and this isn't everyone's experience, but it could be going all the way back to childhood. You know, I've heard experiences where it's like, oh, I was 4 years old and I knew that I wasn't a girl or I wasn't a boy. And they're having to fight it their whole life because it's not allowed. And then when they become adults, they can choose to identify differently. And what they get in return is basically everyone telling them they're wrong. And it's just like, who would choose that for no reason? Like this is like legitimately their journey and how they feel. And you know, like in terms of therapy and finding a therapist, you've got therapists out there who don't believe in being trans, and I'm like, well, there's nothing to believe. Like it's happening.
Yeah.
You know,
you can believe it or not, and it's still gonna happen.
It's
right
still
before your
happening,
eyes.
and it's just it's just a shame.
So I guess needing a therapist for gender assignment is crazy. Do you get a lot of clients that struggle with it, or is it a mixed bag as far as like their body dysmorphia? Do you get people like in between of transition or
yeah, I would say a lot of them have body dysmorphia, and sometimes when they get the surgery that they need, they don't have it anymore. I mean, it's like pretty mind blowing that's what it takes. And I understand it. It's like, you know, if you're like let's say female to male, and you have to look at your boobs every day, and it doesn't align with how you identify and how you really feel. If you can have a surgery to get rid of them, like, you should be allowed to do that. And that's going to make you feel better. It's going to make you feel like I'm getting closer to being authentically like who I am and what I feel like. So, I mean, it's the data out there is pretty, it's good evidence that when they get that surgery, like, it can just make such a huge shift in their mental health.
Some of my favorite videos that I've seen, and I saw a video of one of my close friends go through it personally, just coming out of surgery and looking at themselves for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Just immediately break down in tears, and like, you just see how light they feel and how much relief they have, and yet they're just crying and they're smiling at the same time. So it's just such a beautiful moment for someone to be able to like look at themselves and see what they've seen in their head this whole time.
Yeah, no, because now it's the mirror matches
what's
what
on
exactly.
the inside.
And I mean, I can't relate as far as that far into it, but I mean, I remember just being butch, like, when you first come out and your first I've always been a tomboy my entire life, and I've always known I was gay since I was 5 years old. The same thing. I've known that I liked girls my entire life, but I was scared shitless to put on men's clothes or to do anything like that, because anytime I tried, I had a very straight friends group. This is actually the group that you're very used to with, you know, the boys and everything like that, and those were my first friends coming out of 18, 19, 20, coming out of high school. So very straight group was not very accepting at all, or just didn't like seeing the changes, of course. And it wasn't until we have a mutual friend, Lana and Lady. Lana, I met her when I was 21, 22 years old. She was the first lesbian I've ever met who preferred masculine women. Like, she loved the short haircut. She loved them in the boys' clothes. I dated her best friend. That's how I met her. And her best friend, when we were dating, put me in board shorts, gave me a band t-shirt, like, fixed up my hair. And then when I looked at myself in the mirror, it was a click. And I've never felt more sexy or comfortable in my body. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not transgender. I don't have to go through that. That's a whole nother ball game that I can't even fathom, having to look at the mirror and not be okay with your naked body, right?
I'll say for us, I feel like it's like we change our clothes and then, like, okay, we're feeling comfortable. I can't change my body.
Exactly.
Like, you can't just take these away in 2 seconds, like, oh, I feel better.
And it's also like fluid too. You know, like, some trans people are okay never getting a surgery. And that's just like they're just like, oh, I think I'm good, you know, and you can be trans that way too. Like, it's definitely fluid. But, you know, I always like to point, because people get in this very black and white thinking, like, it's one way or the other. And I'm like, there's really a lot of nuance to it. And it's just all what the person, I like how you said that, just all kind of clicked for you. That's a nice feeling when you're like, damn, this is where I feel the best.
Yeah, like, for me, I always had such an anxiety about going to swimming pools growing up. And it was because I didn't want to wear the swimsuit that girls wear. So I started just wearing, like, basketball shorts and a sports bra, and I'd be like, oh, I forgot my swimsuit. That was always my excuse. But I remember the first time I actually bought a pair of swim trunks. I went to the pool like every day for a week. I was like, this is amazing. Like, swim trunks. Wow. Like, they have a little tie. They have pockets. They poof up when you get in the water. I was having so much fun just not wearing a bikini or feeling like I have to wear one. Yeah.
Getting that, it was an insane amount of relief that you get. So I can't even imagine. I know that's a big thing for, like, the trans community, as far as, like, the female to male transition, is when you do get the top surgery and you get to see your chest for the first time in the mirror, and, like, just that feeling. Like, I can just imagine, because that's how I feel when I put on my nice tie, hat, and, you know, I got to be in a suit at my wedding and things like that. You know, it's always amazing. But yeah. Do you have any other professional questions? Because I'm about to ask her some personal questions.
Professional questions? I think we might have gone over the majority of what I had in mind. So,
okay, Lyndsey. So now it's subject to my shit.
All right.
So as a sex therapist, as someone who's professional and gives advice and does things like this, now I'm curious to know, what was your worst sexual experience and why?
Oh God, worst sexual experience.
And if there's anything that I ask that you're not comfortable, just let me know. We can cut it out.
Okay, yeah. I'll give you like 2 answers as far as worst. One is kind of traumatic, and I'm okay telling the story, by the way. Like, this is not gonna like make me sad for the rest of the day. I've gone to my own therapy for this story, and then I have another one was like maybe kind of more funny. But worst was definitely it was like a sexual assault I experienced. I guess it's been like over 6 years now. But it was with someone that I previously had a sexual relationship with, like, consensually, and then we no longer did that. We were just friends, and then one night we went out, and I can't remember anything, woke up naked at his place, and was very much told I was overreacting. It's not a huge deal. I should be thanking them for driving me back. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I know I would not have met up with you and, like, wanted to have sex. You know, like, I just knew something was, like, off. And so that was just awful because I think it's horrible whether you remember the details or not. Oh, yeah. And it was just like, I know something wrong happened here, and I very much felt violated. So that was probably like the worst. And then I guess other, like, when I think about worst sexual experience, was I was really drunk, and he was really drunk too. Okay. And we were about to get things going, and then he throws up all over my bed. I had to get a new mattress.
No.
It was on my bed, and I was like, what the fuck? And then he was like so sick he couldn't leave, so he was just like laying on the couch. And I was just like, I hate you. That's how I felt. I was like, this is so awful.
I was saying, now that you experienced Hoover Damned, and you were like, in your seat, and I was ready, and I'm mad. You need to leave.
I've been Hoover Damned, and I got to clean up your throw up. I'm pissed. Yeah. So,
oh, man.
Worst one. Yeah.
You know, that was pretty bad for him, too. He never wants to tell that story.
If he remembers.
Yeah. I mean.
That seems like borderline alcohol poisoning.
Yeah. I mean, it was like so bad. I think he like felt bad, but he just like couldn't even help me. And I like understood. I was like, you can't even like stand up. Like, I know you can't help me, but
oh man, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. Oh, so just awful.
I haven't been thrown up on, thank goodness. That's never happened to me before. I don't even think I've thrown up. It's never happened.
I've never thrown up on anyone, but I've been thrown up on.
Really?
Oh, it was like, I was in elementary school. I was at a sleepover for a birthday party. And all of a sudden, I'm sleeping on the floor underneath the couch where someone else was sleeping on. And I get woken up in the middle of the night by the mom. She's like, Lyndsey, wake up. And I'm like, what's going on? What's wrong? She's like, you gotta get in the shower. Skylar threw up on you. And I was like, she did what? And I slept through it. What? Yeah, she had some bad mayo from Subway.
Oh.
We went to the Parks Mall, and this was when Subway was in the Parks Mall. And she was eating it. She's like, this sandwich tastes funny. And we're like, just shut up, eat it, you'll be fine.
Oh, bad mayo will do that.
Yeah. Oh man, I never got my pajamas back either. They're my favorite pajamas.
Oh.
I was like 10. Mm-hmm.
You lost your pajamas, I lost my mattress. It'll ruin things.
Don't puke on people, guys.
Okay. All right, and what about the other side of the spectrum? What would you consider, and you don't have to give too many details, but what would you say is a really good sexual experience? Why was it such a good sexual experience?
I would say best sexual experience. That's a great question. I'm having to go back through all the times I've had sex. I'm like, yeah. No, I mean, I would definitely say it was with Andrew.
Okay.
Because like I was talking about earlier, like having to figure out how to have like passion in this like healthy, safe relationship. Like when I kind of figured that out for myself, I feel like, you know, Andrew's like my person. I love him. He's very safe. And so with him, it's like sex is very like, not every time, but it can be like slow and sensual, and he knows exactly what I like. I know what he likes. And so, I mean, those have been some great times. So not a particular time, but
so it requires you like basically to kind of know each other and communicate, have that like intimacy where you kind of you know the buttons to push in order to
and you can also be like directive. You know, I feel like when it's someone you don't know very well, it's kind of like it can be kind of clunky. It can go great. It can be like, you know, whatever. But I feel like I know him so and he knows me so well. We can both just be directive, like, no, this is what I want. And they're like, oh, okay. And then we do that, you know? So it's like fun. Yeah, we're going to shift now. So it's really good when it's like that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Something about healthy relationships, it just makes everything feel so amazing.
It does. Yeah. It just feels like I just know nothing is going to happen that I'm not going to like or I'm going to regret later.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I just know, I know what the deal is. So it feels good.
Yeah, and that takes a level of intimacy. How would you recommend someone kind of open up to their partner? Like, does that take time or like?
Yeah, it takes time and it really just takes practice. Like if someone's nervous to do it, I'm like, just do it anyway. You know, just get it out there, see what it feels like. If it just felt awful, like we can process it later, right? But sometimes it's just like, you know, even them, how do I identify, like, what do you want to say to them when you do want to say something? Because sometimes they don't even know.
Yeah.
So just kind of having to do it even if it feels nervous, right?
So do you often have to overcome basically the fear of the awkwardness? I think that's the biggest thing. Is
It's the awkwardness. Yeah. People feel awkward even just having a conversation about it. And when you're having you could be directive like right in the middle of sex. So I always advise that. I'm like, you don't need to wait until it's over to be like, oh, I wish you would have done this. It's like, well, now the moment's over, right? We have to wait until next time. But like, if you can do it during, that's great. But having conversations outside of the bedroom matters a lot too.
I can see that.
And sometimes people don't even want to do that because they're just like, how do I even start it? And I'm like, you literally just start. Hey, can we talk about this thing? But that's such a
It's
It's like such a nervous because like talking about being vulnerable. It's like you could try that and it could not go well. Like in your mind, you think, oh, it's not going to go well. They're not going to understand what I like. Those things could be true, but you take the risk anyways, you know? So I have to like challenge my clients a lot.
Yeah.
In that.
I could see that because even personally, like it's hard for me to vocally voice the opinion. Typically I'll turn you over or I'll, you know, try to direct you with my hands. But if it doesn't go that way, I just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll just do this. Type thing. So it's very rare that I'll just be like, all right, now I want you on your back.
Yeah.
Thing. So,
a little to the left.
Yeah. So I could see how that could be. The fear of awkwardness. That's because you don't want to kill the mood. I think that's where it stems.
Yes.
Like I don't want to kill the mood by saying something out loud.
Yeah,
but if anything, you could enhance in the mood because then, like you say something and then bam, you're on the bullseye right then and there, and then
yes, exactly. And it's just trial and error. Like I just try to explain everything's an experiment, and it depends on the person, depends on the couple. There is that fine line of like, am I talking too much? You know, because I've had clients who are like, I feel like he just wants to have a whole conversation, right? When they're like, well, that's probably not like what you're looking for, right?
When dirty talk.
How was your day? How was work? How was that meeting you had? It's like, now's not the time. Now's not right.
Okay.
Funny.
So you recommend someone open to the partner about their wants and their needs and things like that. As far as like sexual boundaries, how do you approach that? Because especially if the sexual boundaries are different for the partners.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like more conversation, right? Like as you're getting to know someone, and sometimes it really is just trial and error. It's almost like. That's such a great question and hard to answer because you might not know you have a boundary until you need to have it. You know, your partner tries something and you're like, wait, I did not like that. Yeah. I was not aware I would feel that way about it. And so I think as long as you're talking about it as much as you can, you're like constantly refining it, you know, because boundaries and agreements can shift and change over time. And you don't always know what you don't know. So if there's certain things that you know is like a boundary for you, you should make that known prior to even having sex or as soon as you think of it. And then if something goes on where you're like, I'm not super crazy about that or that feels like too much for me, it is just letting your partner know. And I think like that also feels scary because it's like, oh my gosh, like are they going to view me differently? And I know this is easier said than done, but it's like if you have certain boundaries and your partner thinks it's silly and continues to cross them, I'm like, they're probably not the partner for you.
Agreed.
Right? Agreed. Like you want someone who's going to respect you.
But how does that, I guess, transfer to the wants and needs of the other partner? Let's say something that they really want.
Yeah. I usually focus on what the person is wanting to get out of that. Okay. If there's an act that person A likes doing, person B is like, no way. Yeah. There's a deeper conversation of why do you like that so much? What feeling do you get? Right? Like deeper than pleasure. What do you get out of that? Is there a way that we can meet in the middle
like
to give you that
mimic that feeling, but with something else.
Something that I feel comfortable with. But sometimes too, if something is like a hell no, and then you find out why your partner likes it so much, you might then even be more open to trying it. Like, oh, I didn't realize that that's why you liked it.
So it's all just communication.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to talk to your partner.
Yeah, because I think with boundaries, like, you also want to be careful. You don't want to have the conversation where it's like, I'll never do that, and that's the end of conversations. Like, well, let's talk deeper here, because maybe you don't understand me either.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, why don't you want to do that? And then you tell me, why do you want to do that?
Yeah. And I'll use anal sex as an example.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know for me, nope, not interested.
So one of the first conversations I had with my girlfriend is, if you ever go near that hole, done.
Yeah. It's just like not, I'm just like, I'm not interested in that. Andrew doesn't care about it either. But like, if some partner really wants that and the other one's like, no way, you have to just find out, why is it the no way? Like, have they had a bad experience before? Because that's not uncommon, where anal just happened way too fast, way too aggressively, and it hurt, and you're just just shoved in there. Like, no. Yeah. So I think if you have that conversation where it's like, hey, we could just go slow. Here's why I like it. We could stop at any time that you want to. There's so much more to talk about. And sometimes your partner being open to trying something with you could be enough.
Okay.
And you might reach a point where it's like, hey, maybe that's not working. Maybe we shift, right? So again, really going back to communication and clarity.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I would say anal, is a topic for us in the queer community. I'm sure heterosexual community as well. A lot of it is the threesomes. Because, two women being together, you're both attracted to women. Yeah. So every once in a while, there will be a throuple situation. It doesn't happen often. But I've seen actually a significant amount of throuple situations where they want to, maybe one partner will want to include it, but the other partner might even be attracted to the other person, but still they don't want to have that boundary crossed because you're in a monogamous relationship. So you don't want to open up those doors, or there's jealousy, or there's insecurity into it. And I've always wondered, how do you approach that boundary? Because monogamy is a vow for a lot of people. And in queer relationships, I mean, we're all attracted to females, so
those are always like interesting conversations. I work with non-monogamous couples too, like the one I mentioned earlier where they're swingers. And if there ever is, I mean, that's even important to talk about. Like, I'll just use swingers as an example. Hey, we're having sex with another couple. It's like, have y'all ever heard of like soft swap or full swap before?
Not soft swap or full swap.
Yeah, soft swap is like, the most you'll do is like oral sex with someone else, and then full swap is like you can incorporate penetration, because some people consider penetration like the ultimate intimacy, right? So it's like, I don't want you doing that with someone else who isn't me. And so you just discuss all that and why it's important to you, but you also discuss like, how are y'all staying connected in the experience if it isn't going well? Because you can, again, it's trial and error. It's like, you can prepare as much as you want, and then you get into the situation and you could quickly realize like, oh my God, no, I don't want to be here. This is not. And then like, how are you it can even just be a look to your partner of like, I don't think this is like really it, but it's not uncommon for things like jealousy or envy to come up, and you really just try to put the pieces together. Like, what's the pattern of that popping up? What does it mean to you? Do you need some assurance from your partner that you're not getting to alleviate that? Is it some internal work that you have to do? So you'd be pretty surprised at how like deep rooted that those conversations can get.
Okay. Yeah. See that. All right, Lyndsey, and before we wrap up this episode, I just want to know, what do you have going on? I saw you've been in stupid amount of articles. I've seen you in, I think it's Glamour. I think I've seen you in what was the other, Cosmo. You just had one recently. You had a book come out. Like, I guess what are you most excited about right now?
What I'm most excited about right now, I like coming out in all those publications is really cool. Just having big magazines like that want your expertise is pretty cool. So they're coming to you with questions and like, what would your answers be? And I get to give my insight and my perspective. And I think what I'm most excited about is I just created a course with a friend of mine called Sexadelics, which is like psychedelics and enhanced sexuality. And it's just kind of a self-paced course that people can buy. You don't have to take psychedelics for it. You can if you want to, but it's
optional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Optional.
Like, I'm interested.
I'm like leaned in a little too close.
Because we definitely don't. The premise behind it is just really at the core. How do you have more mindful sex? Mindful meaning like, you're present, you're paying attention to the sensations in your body. It's a more intense experience. Psychedelics can help with that. And so we're really giving education on how that combination works, but we're also giving education on you don't need psychedelics. Here's how you can have mindful sex just at the core, and ways to communicate with your partner, ways to just really focus on sensation, whether it's by yourself if you're masturbating or whether it's, with your partner, and just kind of figuring out what sex means to you and what would be pleasurable to you and how to communicate that. So it's exciting because if someone doesn't have the time or maybe feels like they don't need therapy, but they just want some guidance, information, practical skills to use at home, this course would be for that. So I'm super excited about it.
Wow. Was that your idea? Like, how'd you come up with that? Or
my friend Cameron actually came to me wanting to collaborate because he's also a therapist, and he does a lot of ketamine assisted therapy. And so that's kind of like his world. I mean, ketamine is like the one regulated thing that, he can use, but he knows a lot about microdosing and other psychedelic options and how to do it in a way where you can lower depression, anxiety, relax, right? Really be in the present and not so anxious about all the other stuff in the world that you have going on. And I think that matters in the context of sex too. So he was like, we should collaborate and make a course. And I was like, absolutely. So I think it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never heard anything like that before. So that's really awesome. That's
pretty cool.
Yeah. For someone who I enjoy psychedelics. I mean, it's not something I do regularly, but on the occasion, I mean, I'm a big fan of just opening that. It feels like it opens up your senses to like,
you feel
hyper.
So aware of everything
I think
inside of you.
Yeah, I think it intensifies the feelings, like bodily sensations and stuff like that. And so I always let everyone know, like, use of psychedelics not required. And then part of the course too really just goes over consent and knowing how you're consenting, whether you're incorporating that or not. So yeah, pretty cool.
For sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it's pretty much time, so we got to wrap it up. We've been talking
pretty much over
really long time.
Yeah, I know you guys stuck through this episode though, because I sure learned a lot. So I hope you guys learned a lot as well.
Hell yeah. No, this was awesome. Again, we got a professional opinion with the shirt. I love the shirt.
Yes. We're going to have to highlight that shirt.
Yes, clitoris shirt.
Amazing shirt. But now we're going to go through the rest of our podcast. Is basically me and Lyndsey are going to share a coming out story that we found on the internet. We just like to, as you guys know, we like to show off that everyone has a different coming out story. Some are good, some are bad, some are funny, some are non-eventful at all. But
just pretty much every walk of life. We really do these stories to show that everyone has their own coming out story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everyone's coming out story is going to be slightly different than the one before them. But you're never alone in how you're feeling. I guarantee you at least one other person in this whole world is feeling the same way that you're feeling.
And if you're feeling alone, you have us.
You have us. We're here.
But yeah, so I cited my coming out story is from a website that we tend to use a lot. It's called whenicamenout.com. Love this website. It keeps everybody anonymous. The only thing that we know about it is for this writer, we have, she's a demi girl. She's bisexual. And she's 18. So that's the only information we have. So just gonna
dive
jump
on in.
Yeah. All right. When I came out as bi to my friends, I had told them that I have had celeb crushes of many genders as well as real life crushes of different genders and never dated anyone. They understood and accepted me. It took my parents a while to understand what I was talking about, but eventually they understood. This was around mid-2021, I believe. Then last year I came out as a demi-girl to my friends and parents. I told them that I have a balance of masculine and feminine personality traits, and that some days my personality is more feminine and others a mix of both. I was so relieved that all of them understood and accepted, which is awesome.
Woo!
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Feeling accepted. Again, that's kind of, I feel that. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself feminine in the least, but there was a time where I was very mixed. I consider myself a little feminine with my long hair and my makeup.
You wear makeup,
I do
right?
wear makeup.
You wear makeup, not feminine at all.
But I do like the androgyny, that mix. So yeah, I can feel you, girl. I'm there with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love happy endings to the stories too.
Yes.
We see some that don't have some happy endings sometimes. So.
Oh yeah, pretty good amount of them.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So the information my story gives is male, 13, and they are gay and beautiful.
Yes, you are.
Love it. Yes,
Yes.
you are. All right. When I came out, I was scared and excited. I felt as if I had found my true self and realized how the world would react. I buried my sorrows in fake crushes on girls and ate a lot. I was self-conscious because this was after the pandemic. Come on, we all gained at least 10 pounds.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
More than 10.
More than 10. You're being a little too nice.
More like 25.
Yeah, there you go. Freshman 15, COVID 30. Come on.
There you go.
All right. I found that a mask helped me hide myself, so I wore one everywhere, even after Omicron. That was the other variation of...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, I lost all the weight, got fit, actually too thin. I'm underweight now and gained strength. I met my boyfriend at a comic shop.
Hey.
He asked me for my number, but my parents were restricted of me, so I only have a computer. So I got his email.
Wow.
Eventually, he asked me out, and he still loves me deeply, and I him. I slowly came out to many close friends, and they all support me and frequently ask about my guy.
Oh my goodness.
Aw.
Yeah.
And baby, you're a baby gay. You're 13. Like you
Yeah.
enjoy puppy love because that
I
was
love it.
that was some of my best memories.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
hearing that, like, how's your guy? Like, versus, like, how's your girl? Because he doesn't have a girl. He has a guy. And I
Yeah.
remember
Beautiful.
the first time those words were said to me, like, hey, how's your girl? And I'm like, oh, that is my girl.
Yeah.
That is. Yes. Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah. Like Denise said, you're still a baby. You're 13. You got tons more living to do, but you enjoy these victories while you have them here because there's only more to come.
Hey. All right, guys. Well, I mean, that pretty much lists our episode, I'd say. We're really happy to have Lyndsey here.
Yes,
Big
thanks
round
for
of
having me on.
applause.
Yeah, it's been a great episode. So I hope you stuck around. I hope you learned something because I
Yeah.
sure as fuck did.
Yeah, sure did. My face only got read a couple of times. I'm
Hey,
I'm
I
pretty
mean,
proud of myself.
you made it through. Yeah.
I was like, okay, as long as we put therapy after all these conversations, I'm good, apparently. Like, it's educational, you know? That's the trick.
But yes, as always, if you found value in this episode, if you liked it, if you want me and Lyndsey to continue to try to educate you guys or to bring you more content, does us a real solid if you just hit that subscribe button,
Hit the subscribe
See,
button,
yeah.
hit that bell, turn on notifications, hit that like button, turn it blue. And, I mean, shoot, we'll see you guys next time. And we've been here for over an hour now. So
Yeah,
let's-
this was a long episode.
we'll go ahead and cut this one off for y'all.
All right, guys, y'all have a good weekend. Thanks for watching. I'm Denise.
I'm Lyndsey,
And I'm Lyndsey.
and we'll see you guys next time.